ain't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Eevee and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's your boy Ernie, the Blerd Without Fear. Welcome back to the channel. Alright, so today we're going to be talking about Giant Size X-Men #1. This is going to be the first of 5 Giant Size one-shots, and all of them are going to be featuring the X-Men, but more specifically, featuring Kamala Khan in some wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey shenanigans. At the very start of this first one-shot, Kamala gets sent back in time, albeit under very unusual circumstances. We know that her best buddy and sort of almost boyfriend, Bruno, it's kind of weird where the relationship is right now because they are friends, they have feelings for one another, but it's just all over the place, but that part's not really important. Point is that Bruno, in the time he has spent studying abroad, has been working on a device that can detect time travel, and somewhere in the midst of everything, Kamala gets sucked into the time stream and transported back to Giant Size X-Men #1 from 1975. This is a pivotal moment in the X-Men's history, not just because it was the new jumping on point following the original 1960s X-Men run, but also because it cemented the X-Men's legacy and what it would become for many years going forward. Now, because of a cosmic fluke, Kamala is now meeting the X-Men for the millionth time, but they're meeting her for the first time. Well, except for one X-Man, and that's Cyclops. And now this gets into some weird shit, and I'm just gonna be brutally honest with you. I don't know what exactly Colin Kelly and Jackson Lanzing are doing with this particular arc in all of this, the whole Kamala and Cyclops knowing one another, because for those of you who may or may not remember, back in the Brian Michael Bendis era of X-Men, when Beast brought the 5-piece original recipe X-Men, Cyclops, Jean, Iceman, Beast, Angel, so on and so forth, when Beast brought those characters back to the present to try and teach them, show them the world that he now lives in, and maybe hoping that some of this information would maybe help them going back in time to their original present, and then maybe hopefully changing the future going forward. When all that was going on, it was basically a disaster because all of those X-Men had changed pretty dramatically. They had to have a whole story arc called Extermination, having to have a young Cable. This is where Kid Cable comes into play, and basically takes all these characters and reverts them back to what they were before and send them back to their present. This was just Beast and Cyclops playing push and pull against one another, because we learned at the end that it was actually Cyclops who was the one who was kind of pulling the strings on this, behind the scenes in regards to the Kid Cable of it all. Now, the trick was supposed to be that when they went back in time, they weren't supposed to go back with any of their memories, and as a matter of fact, they didn't. But the moment that they reached the age where those memories would have made the most sense for them to exist in their head, those memories would come back. And even Cyclops says that all the memories that his younger self had working alongside the champions, all of those memories were in his head as an adult now that the original past version of Cyclops had gone back to where he belonged. This is why when we get to this particular point in time, even though the original Cyclops never met Kamala Khan on the level that he did as the younger version of Cyclops did, it's why the whole deal with Cyclops during the Krakoan era, why he was so heartbroken that Kamala had been killed off by Rabin in that really weird issue of Amazing Spider-Man by Zeb Wells that we just do not like to talk about. But yeah, that's why she was unnecessarily killed off, and why Cyclops had such a strong reaction, is because he had memories of being her friend, being her comrade on the champions. But at this particular point, when Kamala is going back in time, Cyclops should not know who she is. So either A, maybe this is a writing flub where Colin and Jackson didn't maybe know that this was the case, or just willfully chose to ignore it. We've seen this a lot of times, not just in comics, but just in media in general. We literally just had a conversation yesterday on this recent Nerds of Culture number 75. We talked about how Tony Gilroy, the writer of Andor and the original Rogue One movie, completely ignored a canon origin for Cassian Andor meeting K2 for the first time. And this actually happens more often than you might think. Sometimes it is just simple as, yeah, I don't care. We're ignoring that. We don't mess with that over there. We're doing our own thing. But I also wonder too if this is not necessarily Kamala's past, or rather the young Cyclops' actual past. If this is maybe some parallel time stream where maybe the X-Men were sent back with their memories as opposed to without. It's difficult to say, and honestly, I don't think we're gonna get an answer to this. I think this is just gonna be one of those things that you're just gonna have to ride with this, because comic books. But because Cyclops knows who Kamala Khan is, despite the fact that he's not supposed to, this means that Charles Xavier knows who Kamala Khan is now, because he has read Cyclops' mind. So he knows how pivotal Ms. Marvel is to the upbringing of Cyclops when he went to the future. So yeah, I'm not gonna hold you. While under normal circumstances in a time travel story, the whole idea is that, oh, don't change anything. Don't change anything, because you could mess up everything. I'm not gonna hold you. Kamala does what I feel might be more damage to the time stream just by simply being there, because she doesn't know how to shut the up. She is constantly saying things, intimating things that could take place in the future. There's a part where she tries to be friendly with Wolverine. To be fair, in the present day, yes, they are friendly with one another. But the fact that Wolverine doesn't even know her by this point, and she is trying to, oh, we could be friends. You never know. Kamala's trying not to change the time stream, but she's doing a lot of at everybody in the past. It's kind of wild. But even though I've said all that, even though, yes, Kamala is there just kind of willy-nilly messing with the time stream, even though she's not intending to, and she even gets to get a whole new X-Men costume, one that is pretty indicative of the one she had before the Fall of X was over, but also at the same time, just a little bit more retro. But she's not the one that you gotta worry about. She is not the time traveler that everyone needs to be afraid of messing up the timeline. There's another time traveler, and very likely the reason why Kamala got sucked into the time stream at the beginning of the issue, and it's Legion. Or rather, maybe not Legion. It's not Legion proper. It is Legion's body, but Legion himself is actually dead. Now, he's dead, how is it still Legion? Well, we gotta remember, Legion has, to my understanding, millions of personalities just hiding out inside of his head. And basically, this is the rest of the personalities all working together for a common goal. They want to do something with the time stream. It's never explicitly stated what that thing is, but this Legion seems to have access to, I won't say Infinity Stones, but there does seem to be very obviously shards of the Infinity Stones in his possession. We keep constantly seeing him do the whole snap thing that became popularized with Thanos back in the original Infinity Gauntlet story arc, the whole Avengers Infinity War, the whole boom and everything, just everybody's getting wiped out of existence. He's doing that, so it's all meant to kind of call your attention to what it is Legion has floating around him. He doesn't have a gauntlet, he just has the shards. A gauntlet wouldn't do him any good anyway, since he doesn't have the full-size stones. But it might also explain why the things he's doing, they're having unforeseen consequences and side effects. That might have something to do with it. But what's very, I think, even more interesting is that the future that this Legion comes from seems to be a future where a second mutant schism has happened, where mutant civilization has basically been split down the middle, and now there are rival factions. And Legion, it doesn't seem like he belongs in any one particular faction. He just kind of seems to just not be jiggy with any of it. And honestly, who could blame him? The future, as it almost always is for the X-Men, is bleak. This is a very bleak future. While it seems like it's a future where mutant kind isn't necessarily being subjugated, it's still a bad future because it's a future where mutants are at war with one another. And how Legion inserts himself into the situation is that he appears in the 1975 giant-size X-Men one-shot where Cyclops and the all-new, all-different X-Men have to go run off back to Krakoa and save the original recipe X-Men who were left behind. But before I say exactly what that is, if you're still here by this point, clearly you liked the video, so make sure you hit that like button, and also if you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button and tap that notification bell, so that way you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Anyway, let's get back into it. But now this time, they have a little extra added oomph with them because now they have Kamala Khan, who is by any metric an X-Men fangirl. So she knows everything there is to know just about. Without it being something that was like literally a secret kept from everybody, Kamala knows just about everything there is to know about mutant kind and more specifically the X-Men themselves, their history, the things they've gone through, the things they've done. And in this particular instance, she is perfectly suited for this mission because she can tell the X-Men exactly what they need to know to survive the whole scenario. She knows how it's gonna go down. She knows that, what is actually there, what actually took the original X-Men. She knows it's Krakoa, and she knows what Krakoa is meant to be. Hence, why when she shows up this issue, Krakoa is a non-factor, because she still remembers the Krakoan language, which wasn't a language that was created specifically for the Krakoan era. It was a language that Krakoa itself already spoke. At this particular point, she is the only person who can communicate with Krakoa on any meaningful level and is able to actually warn Krakoa that these are not your enemies. These X-Men are not your enemies. These are people who you are gonna ultimately wind up calling as your friend and family, so maybe don't kill them. This is kind of the roll credits moment of the issue because the conversation that Kamala has with Krakoa that galvanizes it into taking action, not against the X-Men, but in an effort to maybe help the X-Men out, is where the Krakoa as an island itself just shoots up into the air, and Kamala literally refers to it as a giant-size X-Man. This is what allows the original recipe X-Men and the all-new, all-different X-Men to be able to escape from Legion as well as Krakoa itself and go move on to live life however they choose. Now, in the midst of all this, yes, Ms. Marvel is up against a Legion who comes from the future, has a whole incredible amount of power. So how is it that Ms. Marvel is gonna solo Legion? Well, I'm not saying she's gonna solo him, but she's definitely gonna be able to get a one-up on him, at least in this regard, because it seems like this Legion comes from a future where Ms. Marvel never unlocked her mutant X gene, and it just so happens Legion has transported himself to the past where a present-day version of Ms. Marvel exists in that time stream who has, albeit she's done it accidentally. Now, I know some people might be confused. Wait a minute. Why is Ms. Marvel involved in this? Why is she talking about mutant shit? Why is she trying to act like she has some skin in the game here? Well, I'm gonna tell you why. Because after the events of that Amazing Spider-Man issue that shall not be named, where she was unceremoniously killed off by the Spider-Man villain Rabin, well, she was resurrected during the Hellfire Gala of the previous year. And in the midst of all that, it was revealed that Kamala was, in fact, actually a mutant. Yes, she's an Inhuman too, but she is also a mutant. Now, I know this might seem confusing, and some people are like, oh, they're just doing this to have parity with the MCU. Yes and no. Yes and no. The real truth here is that originally, before the MCU was, in the full swing that it is now, it's no small secret that Marvel actively went out of their way to not have new comics of characters and teams that they didn't own the rights to. This is why, for the better part of 10 years or more, that you didn't see very many X-Men comics. You didn't really see very many Fantastic Four comics either. And it was largely because Marvel didn't want to line the pockets of Fox. They wanted the rights back to the X-Men and the Fantastic Four and any other characters under that umbrella or any other umbrellas. But the thing is, anytime a new character was made by Marvel in the comics, that character became a new IP that Fox could use to extend their license. Because the way licensing works, that if you have a license something, you can keep it so long as you keep using it. It's how Marvel got Daredevil back. It was because Fox was supposed to have a movie in production by a certain date, and they failed to meet the date. Hence why Daredevil reverted back to Marvel so quickly. Same thing goes for Ghost Rider and other characters. Now, because those other IPs were things that Fox couldn't bank off of as readily as they could in X-Men or a Fantastic Four. That's why Marvel and Disney had to buy that shit back. But for every character they kept creating, every story arc they kept creating, this just gave Fox more things to attempt to make movies out of, or at least pretend to attempt to make movies out of, in order to maintain the intellectual property rights. That's also true that Ms. Marvel was originally supposed to be a mutant in the first place. This has actually been confirmed by Ms. Marvel's creators, specifically Sana Amanat, who is the co-creator of Ms. Marvel. She has even gone on record saying that Ms. Marvel was originally intended to be a mutant. But because at the time, Marvel didn't want to really promote X-Men shit, they were promoting Inhumans because they were like, well, we ain't got X-Men, we can't do nothing with X-Men, so we gotta do something with these Inhumans. That's why Ms. Marvel was made an Inhuman instead. So this is basically just putting Ms. Marvel back where she's supposed to be. But to get away from all that, when Ms. Marvel was resurrected, her mutant X gene was not turned on. And because her Inhuman gene was already active, it would keep her mutant X gene from being turned on. At least this was all done in an effort by Xavier to give her the bodily autonomy that, like, hey, I don't want to make you a mutant if you don't want to be a mutant. I'm gonna let you have the choice. But then we later learned over the course of the next two Ms. Marvel miniseries, which were Ms. Marvel the New Mutant and Ms. Marvel Mutant Menace, we learned that her mutant X gene was likely going to become active again, even with her Inhuman gene already operating. And we even saw in Ms. Marvel the Mutant Menace, we saw that a clone was created of Ms. Marvel who had their X gene activated. And it was basically what I had posited, many times, that this was, the mutant X gene is basically what she's got in the MCU. It's the hard light constructs. Well, we see it here in this issue. It's the same thing. She's got this hard light sheen over her arms, even while she's stretching her arms in an effort, similar to how she's done with her Inhuman abilities ever since. That's basically what it is. It doesn't necessarily like turn the tide or anything. I don't think this is gonna just make her absolutely positively impossible to defeat for Legion, but it's also not gonna make things easy for him either, especially if she learns how to control it, because that's also the rub here. She's not controlling it here in this moment. This is reflexive. This is a passive activation of her mutant power. Now, in knocking Legion on his ass, something that does occur is that Kamala gets transported through time again, only she's not returned to the present. She's just returned to a later point in X-Men history, and that's kind of the whole point of these giant-sized X-Men one-shots. Well, she's been transported to what is arguably the best era of the X-Men to start with, giant-sized X-Men number one, because I'm gonna go ahead and tell y'all right now, all y'all talking about how the 60s X-Men was just so great, y'all are cooked. The X-Men do not exist to me before 1975. I'm just gonna keep it a buck with y'all. But they're going to the next best era of the X-Men, and that's the Dark Phoenix saga. Ms. Marvel winds up finding herself dropped smack dab in the middle of the moment that Jean becomes the Dark Phoenix. Now, this is something that was technically teased in the Time Slide one shot that came out at the kind of end of last year, beginning of this year, to kind of tease the things that were going to be coming up next. So we already knew this was going to happen. So basically what we know is there's going to be a giant-sized X-Men Dark Phoenix saga number one, there will be an Age of Apocalypse number one, a House of M number one, and then a giant-sized X-Men number two. So that's basically what we have to expect. So yeah, I think it's gonna be a pretty interesting ride. It's gonna be a nostalgia trip, and this is all in an effort to change the history of the X-Men. Expect some retcons to come into play here, as we've already kind of seen with the whole Kamala and Cyclops memory situation. I'm pretty sure you'll see some in regards to Krakoa, as what was witnessed in this issue as well, and also the retconning of Ms. Marvel not having her mutant X gene, her probably even retconning the whole idea of her ever being an Inhuman. I think that's probably one of the bigger things that's going to ultimately wind up coming out of this. We're already told the giant-sized Dark Phoenix saga number one is supposed to change something pivotal about Jean Grey, that's going to completely flip her character in the way that we view her. And we're also going to see in Giant Size Age of Apocalypse number one, whether or not the Age of Apocalypse was supposed to be the timeline that we got, not the one that they're currently in. And probably, as you would imagine with Giant Size House of M number one, it's probably not going to be very much of a secret that maybe Kamala is going to see what a world ruled by mutants might look like, and why maybe it shouldn't exist. Maybe kind of similar to what we saw in House of M to begin with. And then, of course, as I just already said, Giant Size X-Men #2 is supposed to redefine X-Men history. How? We don't know, but I'm sure we're gonna find out.